In the following video, I install one of the less expensive universal roof racks on my TC. I'm only using it to carry some 2x6 grid walls to events that we're going to vend at. And if I carry anything more than that, it's probably going to be only a short trip. If you're planning on using a roof rack for long distance trips or on the regular basis, I do recommend that you look for the Yakima Q Tower series. I will put the information in the video description below, but get the roof rack that's actually designed for the TC as opposed to a universal. This will suit me well, but it might not suit you. Just keep that in mind when you decide to either go with a less expensive one or take the time to find the Q Tower series. My quest to find a compatible roof rack for the 2011 to 2016 Scion tC has led me to this one. I've already tried 3 other roof racks unsuccessfully. I think this is going to be the winner. There's only one direct roof rack that'll fit the 2011 to 2016 TC, and it's made by Yakima, but they've discontinued their Q Tower series, and the baseline series does not have a compatible clip. Now, the clips for the Q Towers are hard to find. You'll have to find them used. Your best bet is to track down a TC owner selling their roof rack, but if you can't, this roof rack will be probably your best bet. The 2 things I like about this roof rack is that it's got an all-metal base or tower, and it's aerodynamic. Most of the universal roof racks out there have rectangular crossbars, and it causes a lot of noise because of the turbulence, and it's probably affecting the gas mileage as well. This should help a little bit because of the shape of the crossbars. The instructions that come with this are a little vague. They do have an online video, which is a lot better, but I'll show you how to do the assembly now. First off, take a pair of these bolts with the square backs, slide them in on the underside into the channel here. You'll know the underside because it'll be an open channel. The channel that's the top will have a rubber strip in it. Then take your metal base or tower and then install it so that the bolts go through the middle bolts here. I've got this one secured. As you can see, I've tried to line up this edge to here. This is close enough to have this be 43 inches when you go to put it on the car. As for getting the other bolt here, you're going to take a flat washer, set it on top, then your spring or lock washer there, and then the small knob. So don't tighten it down too tight. Just tighten it down that it won't move when you pick this up, because we're going to need to just loosen it and then adjust this when it's on the roof. So this is going to wobble a little bit, but it's not going to, the bolt won't spin because of that square head, but it will wobble while you tighten it down. Repeat the process on this side. Once you have both the bases installed, grab this rubber foot, line it up this way, and just press it into place. So it will feel a little loose and it will come off easily, but this will be very secure once you put it on the car because it's going to be pressed up between the roof and the base here. Next, take the end cap, and if you look at the side here, you'll have some text. So this is the underside. By looking at the text, it's also going to be the flatter side. Come to the edge here, and if you look, so this one is actually for the other side. So let me grab this one, and then you'll just place it in here, and then use a rubber mallet to press it in until it's nice and flush like this one is. I'm pretty sure that the shortest clip is going to be the one I'll use for the front racks. I'm going to go ahead and pre-install it on here. I will not install the rubber feet until I've gotten 100% confirmation. And I'm going to hold off on pre-installing the rear clips until I confirm which one is the proper length one for the back of the car. Looking at the remaining hardware, take the bolt with the round back, push it through here like that. And then I can't really do this with one hand because it's going to fall off, but you'll put the clip in place there. Then you'll take the flat washer, set that there, and then the knob on top of that. I am not going to use the lock washer for the following 2 reasons. One, if you put it on top the standard way, the opening here is too large. It doesn't even really sort of sit and secure it very well, and it's just going to tear up the plastic. And if you put it on the underside, it's not going to work very well because it's just going to sit funny. And also, once I install this knob and I show you from the side, it doesn't sit completely flush against this because of the way that it holds it in place. I feel like this will actually cause more problems. So we're going to pass on using this washer. Here's what it'll look like once it's installed. As you can see, it sits at an angle there, which is fine because that'll basically help it dig into the clip to keep it from moving up and down. Now, I don't feel bad about leaving the lock washer out of the mix because I watched all of the different LT Sport installation videos and none of them even had a washer that went in here. And I even double checked a couple of other similar roof rack installation videos and guides, and none of them used a washer there. So the nice thing about this design is that you can actually set it further back. Normally the rack will sit right here for the Yakima, but you can actually set this one further back. I've seen someone set their similar sort of based rack as far back as here to allow them to open the sunroof, but I don't feel, because of this curve right here, that that's very safe. So this is as far back as I'm going to go. If you take the leg and put it at the edge of the panoramic roof here, this will give you an idea of how far back I have mine set. So this is the medium-sized bracket, the middle one. Also, the rubber strips, I thought had adhesive on them, but they don't. So the trick for these is I'm just going to set it in place here in the middle and then press the clip over top of it into place and then screw this down. I forgot to mention, but make sure when you install the rack that you do it so the curved side is forward. You'll see it'll say forward on the side here. But this is what it should look like once it's installed. I still have to tighten down the knobs here, but the fitment looks good. It's right to the edges of the roof. It's not touching the glass. It's pretty much flush here for the most part. I don't know how I feel about this rubber being separate, but it's doing its job. It's keeping the edge of the clip off of the paint. I may replace this with a piece of rubberized electrical tape, the really thick electrical tape, because it only really needs to be on the bottom edge here. So now let's go ahead. I'm going to tighten down these two knobs. Don't over tighten them. They do have the lock washer on there, so they won't back out. And then we'll tighten down this and do the other side. As you tighten down these knobs, you'll want to kind of lift this up a little bit as you tighten it down, and just tighten it down a little bit at a time on each side. And then just keep going back and forth, lifting this up, turning this knob. Because if you just tighten down one side, it's going to pull the roof rack and then to one side, and then it'll be uneven. So just repeat this process back and forth until it's nice and firm, but not over tight. Now that we have the back bar installed, let's do the front. So you can see here, I've lined it up with the front edge of the moonroof glass, and it still allows the moonroof to open for venting. You will not be able to actually open the sunroof all the way because it will hit the back bar here. Now, as I said earlier, someone did mount a similar design bar. It was basically like this, but with a rectangle or trapezoid type bar on top as far back as here, and it allowed them to open it, but I just don't feel secure about this angle and the clip to hold it here. So if you're going to move it any further back, you're going to do that at your own risk. I would not go any further back than this. Once you've tightened down these knobs, go ahead, put the rubber strip in here. As you can see, it goes all the way to the edge here, but the clip is only going to end right here. If you push the clip in any further when you tighten it, it's going to pull out. You also want to make sure that the corners here are not touching the car, but go ahead and hold this up in place so that it's flat, and then tighten it a little bit on this side, and then go to the other side and keep repeating the process like you did on the back until this is secure. This is something to keep an eye out for. As you can see, it's nice and flush here, but as I tighten it down, there is a gap on the front, so the clip actually isn't completely flush against the underside here, and we don't want that, and that's because of the angle of the roof here. So I'm gonna have to move this back a little bit. I'll try moving it back about an inch, but make sure that when you tighten it down that you don't have a gap on one side. Moving it back 1 inch has solved the problem, but it also brings the corner here very close to the paint, so I repositioned the rubber strip so that it protects the edge here. And as you can see, it's only covering the back part here, but it lifts it up enough on the front to keep this corner from touching. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm definitely replacing this rubber with thick electrical tape or a larger piece of rubber. So everything is on here nice and secure. That's not moving. That's not moving either. And that's pretty good. That's not affecting the seal too much on there. The previous ones that I had tested out were so thick right here that it caused an issue with the door closing and the seal. But I guess I'll find out when it rains, but it looks good. So that's what the roof rack will look like once it's installed. I've had the roof rack installed for over a week now, and I'm very happy with it. It's been very secure up there. The knobs have not come loose. I haven't had to retighten down anything. The wind noise is really good. Around 40 miles an hour, you'll start to hear a little bit of noise up there, but it's pretty low. And then, well, I was just going 65, but now I'm hitting some traffic. But even when I was going 65 miles, it was making a little bit of noise up there, but it wasn't very loud. In fact, I don't even notice it anymore unless I'm listening specifically for it. But now when I'm listening to NPR or any of my music on the radio, I don't have to turn it up any more than before I put the roof rack up there. I can still hear everything clearly because it's not that loud. So that's really nice. Another thing is I've already filled up my tank twice on the car because I've been doing a lot of driving, and I haven't noticed any change in my gas mileage. So that was one of the things I was worried about with having a roof rack up there, is I might lose some mileage, like 1 or 2 gallons, but so far it remains unchanged. Now that the roof racks have passed their initial tests, I want to make them a little bit more secure because I'm going to leave them on the car because I want to drive around with them a bit before I actually put a load on them. One of the things that I discovered is if you just loosen this knob a little bit, because I'd gone to the store and I took the knob in with me, that will definitely affect how tight this is, because I had to retighten this down and then retighten this down again. And we don't want that to happen. And I don't trust that this is basically just, plastic with this spring washer, which these really aren't that great. So what I've done is I've gotten a lock nut. It's an M8 by 1.25 millimeter. It's got a nylon insert on the top, so when you screw it down, it prevents it from moving. And I've used in this case, a 13 millimeter deep socket to bolt this all the way down. So I just basically left one in place and then replaced the washer with the lock nut, tightened it down, and then did the other one. And then, of course, because I don't want this just hanging out on the bottom, I've stuck the knob back on here just to hide the rest of the threads. So I'm going to go ahead and do this on the other side and then the other crossbar. Now that all the lock nuts are in place, I'm going to go ahead and take care of these clips. So the rear clips here, I've replaced that loose piece of rubber with this rubber tape. This is the Scotch 3M 2242 splicing tape. So you can see here, it's kind of thick. And I've wrapped it around the bottom here just like this. You can see it better from the side. So now I'm going to take care of the front clips. The front clips are going to be the same way, except I've also added a piece of tape here because when I tightened this on the rack, this corner came very close to the car. Also, be sure to clean the surfaces with alcohol so the tape will stick well. I continue to be very pleased with the roof rack. It remains very secure, but I've also replaced all of the knobs with lock nuts, including the one here on the side. So this will make sure that it doesn't come loose at all and then potentially come off the vehicle. As you can see, I've also installed some 7 millimeter inner diameter screw caps. These are vinyl on all of the caps here. That way, if I take this off later and the screw hits the top of the glass, it won't scratch it. And it also makes it look a lot nicer than just having a bare thread sticking there. I've had the roof rack installed for another week, this time with the lock nuts instead of the knobs that it came with. I've had no problems. It's definitely been secure up there. It's been exposed to rain and cold weather and frost up there. It's actually going to snow here in the next couple of days. I did just come back from an event in Pennsylvania, and I didn't have any problems with it there. The wind noise remains about the same. I did drive it on a very, very windy day, and of course it was a lot louder then, but it did not affect the handling of the car. I know when you drive around in your vehicle and it's really windy, especially when you get crosswinds, it'll blow the car around. I was concerned that with the roof rack up there it might affect it even more so, but honestly I couldn't tell the difference between driving in windy weather with the roof rack as opposed to without. Now I'm going to go ahead and leave it on there for the rest of winter, just to really test it out. And if there's a change in the roof rack, I'll do an updated video. Set this one about 1 inch back. Don't move it any further forward. Otherwise, the front part of this clip will be set so that it's actually not touching and only the back will have support. If you have a problem trying to get this to sit flush, you can loosen these 2 bolts here, and then this can pivot a little bit. So pivot this inward more and then this out, and that'll help make this flush better. The last thing you can try is not all of the brackets are 100% identical. I had to actually swap out the bracket on the other side with one of the ones from the box, and then that one sat nice and flush. For the rear one, don't move it any further back than what I have here. This is a 2.5 inch gap from the back of the glass here to the edge here. Any further back, and the curve is just enough that this won't sit in as far as I have it right now, and you'll risk having it pop out, especially if you have a load on top of there. Also, when you're using lock nuts here like I am, don't over tighten it. Make sure that you're lifting up on the bracket when you tighten it down, and then when it feels tight, just give it maybe 1/8 of a turn, and then you should be good. Same deal with the front. LT Sport rates these roof racks for 150 pounds, but I doubt that my vehicle will ever see that much weight on the roof. As I said earlier in the video, I'm only carrying some grid walls on here, maybe some things from Home Depot, but that's about it. But honestly, I feel that after doing these modifications, like the lock nuts and of course the tape on here, and then making sure that I have got it properly set so that this is nice and flush on the underside of the car with enough grip, that this will be fine for carrying heavier loads. Now, if you're worried about your roof rack coming off the car and you're going to be using it on a regular basis, again, I recommend that you pick up all the bits and pieces for the Yakima, and I'll put all that information in the video description below. I hope this helps you out if you're looking to get a roof rack for the TC, and you're willing to go the less expensive route and get this universal set. Thanks for watching.